Okay, let's dive in. Just imagine trying to count, well, over 1.4 billion people in India.
It's mind-boggling, isn't it? The sheer scale.
Right. Across sprawling cities, tiny remote villages, mountains, coasts, just everywhere. And you're not just counting heads.
No, you need details about their homes, about them as individuals.
And for the first time in, nearly 100 years, including specific caste information for absolutely everyone.
That's a huge addition. Very significant.
And then the really big twist, ditching all the paper, doing it all digitally with smartphones.
Yeah, it's a massive technological leap.
So it's this colossal headcount, but also, this giant tech experiment. We've been digging into the plans for India's upcoming 2027 Digital Census.
And our mission today really is to unpack it all. Why now? What makes this one so different? And, crucially, what are the implications?
Huge implications, I imagine.
Definitely. I mean, it's unparalleled globally, this scale. And the timing, well, it's critical. A census is supposed to be this regular checkup for the nation.
Yeah, vital for planning, right? Infrastructure, welfare, everything.
Exactly. But India's last proper census was way back in 2011.
2011, that feels like a lifetime ago. The population then was, 1.21 billion?
Correct. And now, we know it's over 1.4 billion. India's actually surpassed China.
Right. And the one planned for 2021, that got delayed.
Yeah, COVID-19 pushed it back. So you've got this massive growing population, and the official detailed data the government uses is, well, it's over a decade old.
Which means policymakers, people allocating funds, planning schools, hospitals, they're kind of working in the dark.
Pretty much. We saw one former official, P.C. Mohanan, describe it perfectly, a major data deficit, like flying blind.
That's a powerful image, flying blind with 1.4 billion people.
It makes effective governing incredibly difficult. How do you make sure welfare actually reaches the people who need it most without current data?
So the government knew they had to act.
Clearly. They announced the plan for this 2027 census back on June 4th, 2025. That came from the Union Ministry of Home Affairs.
And the timeline they've set themselves is, well, it sounds incredibly ambitious.
It really is. Getting the results out in just 9 months.
9 months compared to almost 2 years for the 2011 data?
Exactly. It's a massive speed up. And honestly, it completely hinges on this big digital push they're making.
Okay, so let's get into that digital transformation. What's the core change here?
Fundamentally, it's swapping paper forms for a mobile app.
An app for everyone involved.
For the enumerators, yes. We're talking about 34 lakh people. That's 3.4 million enumerators, usually local teachers, government clerks, people like that.
Wow. 3.4 million people with smartphones and this app.
Deployed across roughly 240 million households. It's a staggering logistical operation.
And the app itself, is it user-friendly?
It's designed to be, apparently available in 16 languages, which is crucial given India's diversity. And they're also offering a self-enumeration option.
Self-enumeration, so people can just fill it in online themselves?
Yeah, if they prefer. That could potentially speed things up, especially in urban areas with better connectivity.
Okay, but deploying tech to 3.4 million people across such varied terrain, that sounds like a huge challenge in itself. How does the tech actually work in practice?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The plan includes using GPS tagging for every single household.
GPS. So they pinpoint exactly where each survey happens.
That's the idea. Whether it's a Mumbai skyscraper or, a nomadic yurt in Ladakh, create a precise map, make sure nobody's missed.
And the data, how does it get back?
Theoretically, instant upload. As soon as an enumerator finishes with a household, the data gets sent to central servers.
That must save incredible amounts of time compared to shipping paper forms around.
A huge bottleneck, gone. They're also talking about using tech like intelligent character recognition, ICR, to help process the data faster.
And security. That's got to be a major concern with all this personal data.
Absolutely. They're emphasizing robust encryption. Plus, there's a central dashboard, the Census Management and Monitoring System, or CMMS portal, so managers can track progress in real time.
Okay, it sounds impressive on paper, like a really slick system. But, large-scale tech rollouts in India, they often hit snags, right?
That's the reality check. You've got 3.4 million enumerators. Their digital skills will vary hugely. Training them all effectively on a new app, that's massive.
We saw issues with the Cohen vaccine app initially, didn't we? Usability problems.
Exactly. Those kinds of glitches can happen. And then there's connectivity.
Yeah, internet access isn't exactly universal, especially in rural or remote areas.
Precisely. So instant upload might be more like upload when you get signal. Enumerators might have to store data on their phones and sync later. That adds complexity. potential for data loss.
Sounds like they'll need a lot of that famous Indian Jugaad improvising solutions on the fly.
You bet. And hitting that 9-month processing target? Given all this, compared to nearly 2 years last time,
Mm.
it feels like it would almost be a miracle if everything runs perfectly smoothly nationwide.
Okay, so huge tech challenges. But let's shift gears to maybe the most sensitive part of this whole exercise, including caste data. For everyone.
For the first time since 1931, collecting caste details for all communities, not just scheduled castes and scheduled tribes.
Why is that such a politically loaded issue in India?
Well, caste is just deeply woven into the social fabric. It's historically tied to hierarchy, occupation, social status, even marriage patterns. So, counting it explicitly for everyone touches a very raw nerve, socially and politically.
It has implications for everything from identity politics to affirmative action policies.
Exactly. And this decision didn't come out of the blue. There's been intense political pressure building for years.
Mostly from opposition parties.
Yes, particularly parties like the Congress. Leaders like Rahul Gandhi have been arguing strongly that you need a full caste census to update reservation quotas to make sure affirmative action reflects the current demographics accurately.
And some states have already gone ahead and done their own counts, haven't they?
They have. Bihar, Telangana, Karnataka. Bihar's 2023 survey was particularly notable. It reported that 63% of the state's population belonged to backward classes. That really fueled the national debate.
The central government, the BJP, seemed hesitant at first, though.
They did, but they eventually agreed in April 2025. We saw Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw promise the process would be transparent.
So politically, the decision's made. But how on earth do you actually count caste accurately?
That's the practical nightmare. India has literally thousands of castes and subcastes. And the names. They change from region to region, even for the same group. Yadav in one place might be a Ahir somewhere else.
Didn't they run into massive problems with this during the 2011 socioeconomic caste census?
They absolutely did. That exercise generated something like 4.6 million different responses for caste names. People listed gotras, clans, surnames, just everything. It was almost impossible to make sense of it, to standardize it.
So how are they planning to avoid that this time? Is there a standard list?
Well, experts suggested using a preset list. But the current plan, as described, seems to be that enumerators just record whatever the respondent says.
If someone says their caste is Martian Brahmin, that just gets written down.
Essentially, yes. There doesn't seem to be a built-in verification mechanism described. So you could again end up with millions of variations, making aggregation and analysis incredibly difficult. It's a huge data challenge.
And beyond the practicalities, the very idea of counting caste, it sparks strong opinions, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. You have critics, including groups like the RSS, worrying it will just stir up social tensions, maybe entrench caste identities further, or be misused for vote bank politics.
But on the other side, proponents argue it's essential.
They do. People like Riyatika Kara at IIT Delhi argue you need this data to tackle welfare exclusion. She estimated maybe 100 million people are missing out on the public distribution system, the subsidized food program, simply because the quotas are based on ancient data.
So knowing the current caste breakdown could help target aid better.
That's the hope, that it could make policies fairer, reveal hidden inequalities, but it's that double-edged sword again. It could also fuel demands for bigger quotas, intensify political battles, especially in states like Bihar, where caste politics are already very prominent.
A real minefield. So given all this complexity, how are they structuring the actual census operation? Is it all done at once?
No, it's broken down into 2 main stages. Think of it like a 2-act play.
Okay, Act 1.
Act 1 is the house listing operation, or HLO. That's slated to start around April 2026.
And what happens during the HLO?
This is where enumerators basically map and list every single building and dwelling. They collect information about the physical structure, wall materials, roof type, access to toilets, drinking water source, and some basic details about the head of the household, like if they're female or belong to an SC/ST community.
So it's about the buildings and who heads the household.
Primarily. And this phase also involves updating the National Population Register, the NPR.
Ah, the NPR. That's the database of residents, right?
Yes, it's a database of usual residents. There's an existing one with about 1.19 billion people, but this HLO phase updates it. The exact details of what's updated for the NPR this time round weren't super clear in what we looked at, though.
Okay, so that's phase 1, setting the stage. Then comes phase 2.
Correct. Phase 2 is the main event. The population enumeration, or PE, the actual counting of every individual. That's scheduled to kick off in February 2027.
And this is where they ask all the detailed questions.
Exactly. Age, sex, marital status, religion, mother tongue, education level, what work they do, migration history, like where they were born, where they last lived, and of course the caste question.
And there's a specific date that all this information relates to, like a snapshot in time.
Yes, the reference date for most of India is March 1st, 2027. Midnight between February 28th and March 1st, essentially. That's the anchor point for the count.
But not everywhere starts in February. I remember something about mountainous regions.
That's right. For practical reasons, the snowbound areas, places in Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, they'll actually start phase 2 much earlier, around October 1st, 2026.
To get it done before winter makes access impossible.
Exactly. You have to adapt to the geography. It highlights the logistical complexity.
And the hope is that using the app makes the second phase, the detailed count, much smoother than the old paper way.
That's the big bet. Digital entry, drop-down menus, maybe even pulling some info automatically from the HLO phase. It should drastically cut down on errors compared to filling paper forms by hand and then having someone else type them up later, and speed up getting the data in.
Faster and maybe fewer mistakes, although you can still picture someone accidentally tapping the wrong button.
Chuckles.
Oh, absolutely. Maybe logging the family pet as a household member if we're not careful. Minor glitches are always possible with tech at this scale.
The first official digital pet census. So, okay, let's assume they navigate all this, collect the data, process it within that incredibly tight 9-month window, say late 2027, maybe early 2028. What's the immediate major consequence of having this new detailed picture of India?
The single biggest political fallout is triggering delimitation.
Delimitation. Okay, remind us what that is again.
Yeah.
It's the process, mandated by the Constitution Articles 81 and 82, of redrawing the boundaries of parliamentary and state assembly constituencies, basically adjusting the electoral map to reflect changes in population distribution.
And this is a huge deal because, well, the current map for national elections is pretty old, isn't it?
Extremely old in demographic terms. The last delimitation for the Lok Sabha, the national parliament, was based on the 2001 census data. And the actual number of seats, 543, has been frozen since way back in 1976.
Frozen since 1976. Why was that?
Primarily through constitutional amendments, the 42nd and later the 84th. It was partly done so that states which had been more successful in controlling their population growth wouldn't be sort of penalized by losing seats relative to states with higher growth.
But that freeze has an expiry date tied to the census.
It does. The freeze lasts until after the first census taken after the year 2026. So this 2027 census is the trigger. Its data will be the basis for the next delimitation exercise.
Meaning the results of the census will directly shape the constituencies for the 2029 general election.
Precisely. And given how differently population has grown across India since 2001, this is where it gets really politically sensitive.
You mean the potential shift in power between North and South India?
That's the crux of it. Generally, population growth has been higher in many northern states compared to the southern states. So delimitation based on this new data is widely expected to lead to more parliamentary seats being allocated to the north, potentially at the expense of the south.
Which could significantly alter the balance of power in Delhi.
It could. And it's already causing real anxiety and pushback. We've seen leaders from southern states like Tamil Nadu's Chief Minister M.K. Stalin expressing serious concerns about losing representation and political influence nationally.
And there's another major piece of legislation waiting on this delimitation process too, right?
Yes, the Women's Reservation Act, passed in 2023. It reserves 33% of seats for women in the Lok Sabha and state assemblies. But, and this is key, the law itself states it can only be implemented after the next delimitation based on the post-2026 census is completed.
So this census data is literally the key that unlocks women's reservation.
Effectively, yes. It's not just about counting. It directly determines when and how that major reform can happen, fundamentally changing who represents Indians in their legislatures.
Wow. Okay, so summing up the hurdles here.
Yeah.
It feels immense. You've got the tech side, the caste minefield, and then these huge political consequences with delimitation and representation.
It's a gauntlet, really. You can group the main challenges. First, the pure tech issues. Training that army of enumerators, the connectivity lottery, the risk of system glitches, getting the technology right everywhere is absolutely paramount for that timeline.
Then there's the whole caste data piece.
Yeah, the methodology questions, how do you actually capture it meaningfully without just getting millions of unusable entries? How do you aggregate it? And how do you manage the political fallout and sensitivity around it? It's incredibly complex.
And underpinning it all is privacy. People need to trust the system.
Critically important. While the Census Act guarantees confidentiality, the data is only for statistics, never released individually. Past concerns about data security, like with Aadhaar sometimes, mean the government have to really prove the encryption and safeguards are watertight. Trust is essential.
And finally, just the sheer brute force logistics of it all.
Logistical madness, exactly.
Yeah.
Managing millions of people across deserts, mountains, floodplains, megacities, remote islands, dealing with language barriers, weather, maybe even wildlife. Just ensuring every single household gets counted accurately is an operational feat on an almost unimaginable scale.
So bringing it back to the listener, why should someone maybe sitting thousands of miles away really care about India's 2027 census? It sounds like a huge internal exercise.
Because the results, the data that comes out of this, they're not just abstract numbers. They have a direct impact on the lives of, well, potentially everyone in India. And indirectly, they matter globally.
How so specifically? What's the direct link?
Okay, first, welfare planning. This data is the foundation for deciding who gets access to vital government support, food rations, healthcare schemes, scholarships, housing assistance. If the data's wrong, millions get left out. Remember that point about 100 million potentially missing PDS? This census could fix that.
So it directly impacts people's basic needs.
Absolutely. And then there's policy precision. Governments at all levels use this data to make decisions. Where do we need new schools, more hospitals, better roads? Where should we invest resources? The census tells them where the people are, what their needs look like. It shapes the very communities people live in.
And the political impact we talked about, delimitation.
Yeah, that reshapes political power. Which regions gain influence, which lose it. It affects representation, maybe even future reservation policies. Your voice, or the voice of your region, in the national political debate is literally weighted by these numbers.
Plus the social dimension with the Caste data.
Right. Handled well, it could potentially highlight inequalities and help target social justice initiatives more effectively. Handled badly, well, it could deepen divisions. It's a high-wire act with real social consequences.
It's fascinating, too, because while India is not the first to try a digital census.
No, other countries like Vietnam, Eswatini, they've experimented, sure, often with mixed results, facing similar challenges like connectivity. But the scale here, 1.4 billion people, 240 million households, it's just on a completely different level. Nobody's ever tried this digitally before.
So it's not just an Indian story. It's a potential global blueprint or maybe a cautionary tale?
Absolutely. How India navigates this, its successes, its failures, will offer huge lessons for other large, diverse countries thinking about digital governance. And you can bet, if things go wrong spectacularly, the world will notice. Probably on X first.
And it's not cheap undertaking something like this.
Not at all. A massive investment. The initial figures mentioned were around, 38 billion for the census itself back in 2021, plus nearly 50 billion allocated for the NPR update. It's a serious commitment to public funds.
All governed by existing laws, like the Census Act.
Yes, the Census Act of 1948 and the Census Rules of 1990 provide the legal framework. We're expecting the formal notification with the detailed schedules around June 16, 2025.
And there's one person ultimately in charge of making this incredibly complex machine work.
The person leading this operational army is the Registrar General and Census Commissioner, Mrityunjay Kumar Narayan. It's a monumental task resting on his office's shoulders.
So looking ahead to 2027, this is so much more than just counting people. It's a huge technological leap. It's navigating deep political waters. It's holding up a mirror to Indian society itself.
It promises to give us the most detailed portrait of India we've had in decades. Who lives where, how they live, the complex social tapestry.
And it really leaves you wondering, doesn't it? You weigh the enormous potential better policies, maybe fairer social outcomes against all these colossal challenges. The tech hurdles, the privacy risks, the political dynamite of caste and delimitation. Can a single giant digital snapshot truly capture the intricate reality of over 1 billion diverse lives without causing unintended harm? Or is the sheer act of trying the data itself fundamentally valuable even with all the inherent risks?
That's the big question, isn't it? Something definitely worth thinking about as this whole massive exercise unfolds.